So we're going to talk about personal protective equipment, or PPE. So let's find out how much do you already know, because in this position you're probably all using different types of PPE. We'll go through them, kind of have an overview, but let's see what you know. A hazard assessment is conducted only for job functions that involve hazardous materials or chemicals. True or false? That's right, it's false. If you're going to have something hit you on the head, I need to do a hazard assessment to know that you should wear a hard hat to do that job. So we look at everything. Your employer is responsible for selecting the PPE that you use. True or false? That's right, true. Their job is to make sure they know all the hazards that you're exposed to when you do your job. PPE should be inspected before each use. True or false? True. It's true. You're wearing it, you need to make sure it is not broken. It is not important to keep your PPE clean. True or false? That's false. And I'm a safety consultant. I go to a lot of different places, and I see some really gross things sitting around on tables and whatnot, and I'm like, you're going to put that on your face? Ooh. So yes, keep it clean. Your employer's responsibilities. So as I said, they have to protect you from machinery, hazardous chemicals, dangerous work procedures that can cause injury. So looking at all the tasks that you do and identifying what you need to do your job safely, that is part of a PPE hazard assessment. So employers also have to look at any available engineering and work practice controls to eliminate the hazard before they give you PPE. So what can we do? If it's a really bad chemical, let's put a different chemical in its place maybe. Machine guards, ventilation, those types of things get implemented first. After that, then PPE is issued to provide an additional level of control. And PPE is always the last step. As an employee, make sure you understand what your safety rules and responsibilities are. Maintain and sanitize your PPE. Keep it clean, keep it stored properly. Don't use anything that's damaged or defective. If you put on a respirator that has a cartridge that's been on that mask for a year, it's not going to help you. So make sure you're using it appropriately. And always speak with your supervisor. If something is broken, you need to replace something, so that you're wearing something that is up to date. So eye and face hazards. It's got a glare on it. So we need to protect our eyes and face from flying particles, molten metal. You don't have to work with that here, I'm hoping. Hazardous liquids and chemicals, and even light radiation. I don't think anybody's doing any welding or working around any UV light. So again, that really probably isn't a hazard here. But safety glasses, we need to know when to wear them. And just putting side shields, I see lots of regular eyeglasses in the room. Putting a side shield on your regular glasses does you no good. You have to make sure that the lenses are safety lenses so that the impact hazard is mitigated. Goggles, we're in a chem lab here. Kind of fun, got this. I don't know if it's a chem lab or not with these chairs. It's the way this is set up. I don't know what this room really is meant for, but this is definitely for chemistry. So when we're working with chemicals and there's a splash hazard, a goggle, safety glasses will not protect you from a splash. So goggles are the better choice. Face shields, as I said before, when we're welding or working with any other large fragment hazards. Shaded lenses, again, light hazards, welding, UV lights, things of that nature. And then, as I said before, prescription eyewear, making sure that the lenses in the front are impact resistant as well as having a side shield on it. Every pair of safety glasses that's appropriately rated will have an ANSI rating on them. If you get your reading glasses out and you look at the frames, you will find that marking on an appropriate pair of safety glasses. Feet hazards. We got to protect our feet, especially for our custodial maintenance employees. You're working around pieces of equipment. Do you guys use floor cleaners, buffers? Okay. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your feet from anything that might fall or roll, any sharp objects that you might step on, electrical hazards. I don't think you'll need that level of protection in a school environment, but slippery walking surfaces. You're cleaning the floors are wet. Your footwear should be slip resistant so that you're not falling on the wet areas. And hazardous materials. It's hot today, I'm wearing sandals. I certainly wouldn't do any chemistry work today with the footwear that I have on. I would want to make sure my feet are protected. And cold weather conditions, snow removal, or do you use another company for that? You guys do that too? So cold weather, you got to keep your feet warm or you'll get frostbite. So it's important to make sure that you're wearing appropriate footwear for that. So choices, obviously, steel, composite toe boots, protect you from those dropping hazards. Toe caps, if you don't want to wear a pair of steel toes all day, they make those caps that go right on the outside of your shoe. Your footwear becomes a steel toe at that point. Metal tarsal guards, you're not working in any industry where you're going to step on something sharp that would go through the sole of your shoe. Slip-resistant soles, chemical-resistant shoes, again, depending upon the level of chemical that you're going to be working with, and waterproof and cold weather footwear. So there's different choices of footwear for the different tasks that you have to perform. And again, remember, anything that's rated for personal protective equipment is going to have an ANSI rating on it. That will tell you that this piece of equipment is rated appropriately to protect me. Hand hazards. Again, you guys are working with potentially harmful substances, so you got to protect absorption in the skin, cuts and lacerations, abrasions, punctures, chemical burns, thermal burns, frostbite. So there's a lot of things that can happen to our hands just performing the daily duties of our job. So again, we have to select the hand protection that's appropriate for the job. We might need chemical resistant gloves. Keeping in mind, some people have what's called a latex allergy. So we always recommend that you don't have latex gloves in a large population because you never know who that person might be that has the latex allergy. So nitrile gloves are usually just better for chemicals anyway. They're stronger, more resilient. Leatherwork gloves, if you're working with sharp material, something that might cut your hand. Temperature gloves. Winter's coming. Doesn't feel like it today, but it will be here, and you're going to have to go out and shovel the snow. Protect your hands with appropriate gloves. Electrically rated work gloves. Does anyone do any type of electrical work in this room? No? Yes, no? Do you ever open an electrical panel? Switch breaker? No? Sometimes? Okay. We'll get a little bit more into that, but you might need gloves to protect you from potential shock. Always use, when you're working with chemicals, look at the safety data sheet to see what type of glove you should wear. Every SDS will tell you that. And that'll tell you the glove based on the exposure, the duration, how long you're going to be doing that task, and then the protection level needed. So does my glove need to come just to here? Does it need to come all the way up to my elbow? Do I need a gauntlet style glove that will protect my whole arm for that? And also a grip. If you ever look at different types of rubber gloves, there are some that have texture on the palm and the fingers, so it gives you dexterity while you're wearing that glove as well. Clothing, again, I'm not sure to the level of what you guys would need here. If you're outside, I look at the example of snow, again, because you're outside in the parking lot areas where buses might be traveling and cars. I'm assuming you're going to be wearing some sort of reflective clothing so that people can see you. Maybe, maybe not. I see that by the face. Especially if you think it's in the winter. It's probably a little bit dark in the morning when you're doing that snow work. So make sure people can see you. If you're working with a lot of hazardous materials, Chem Lab is a good example. I might put an apron on to protect myself. Heavy, sharp, rough materials, any moving equipment, which I don't think really is an option here. And as I said before, visibility. We want to see you. And weather conditions too. You might need a really warm jacket, depending upon the temperature that it is outside. So weather protection, looking for a high visibility vest if you're going to be in an area where there's moving traffic. Chemical resistant suits, I don't think you guys need to have any of that. You're not doing anything that would require that. Or head hazards, hard hats. I don't think any of you are really wearing or working in anywhere where we're having head hazards. So we'll skip through these real quickly, but you all know what a hard hat is. what its job is to do. It's to protect things from hitting you in the head. And again, it's PPE. It's going to have an ANSI rating attached to it. Respiratory hazards. Does anybody ever put on a respirator? A white dust mask? Oh, I see a couple hands come up. So that's a respirator. So understanding that, you know, those white masks, their job is to protect you from dust, airborne particles. So they're going to filter that material out of the air that you're breathing. Vapors and fumes, that's when we're putting on a regular looking respirator, what people think of when I say that, the black mask with the cartridges on it, or lack of adequate oxygen. None of that would apply here. If you're a firefighter, if you're a volunteer firefighter, then you're very familiar with an SCBA and how that how you would wear that object. So, seems like most of you are familiar with this right here. That's the filtering face piece. Not too many of you have to wear an air purifying respirator, but remember that all of these respirators are NIOSH approved, and that you do need to have, as soon as you put on this rubberized mask, you have to go through medical surveillance in order to make sure that you're physically fit to wear that. The white dust masks, no, but once you put that black mask on your face, then you have to have additional clearance in order to make sure you're fit to use it. Hearing hazards. How noisy is the work that you do? A little bit?
Yeah,
somewhat. Depends on who you're working with, how loud they talk. How loud the radio is, the floor sweepers, if they make a high level buzzing sound. But again, it's important to understand what tasks that you do could potentially have high noise levels. If we had more maintenance staff in here, I would make suggestions, things like running a weed whacker, running the lawnmower. Those are loud tasks. So we would know that we would have to make sure to wear hearing protection when we're doing that. So I think we're all familiar with what hearing protection can look like. Basic earplugs. Do you have hearing protection available? If you need it, you can choose to use it. So making sure that you wear what's comfortable. So understanding that ear muffs, just basic earplugs, or canal caps, there's different options and they can be chosen accordingly.